Lily, I thought we talked about this on Thursday. How to end a 4-year friendship, friend engages in behavior. Um, Lily, all you can do, and we talked about this on Thursday, is distance yourself, disengage, disconnect, unplug, and the friendship will die. Remember, I said if you don't water it, it's not going to grow. If you don't water it, it's going to die. And what that looks like is just unplugging from the friendship. Don't put any energy in it, and it will die. I love that. I hate that girls feel like they have to dress and act a certain way. I know. I love that too, actually, because it's so hard. You know, you guys, and for all of you guys, all of you people who are, I would say, I'm going to say under 45, there's a there's a whole new thing brewing that I think is going to be really, really interesting. And I don't know that it's going to happen in the next 20 years, but I think that we're going to see a really interesting shift, cultural shift for women, um, in a way that I'm going to say it almost feels like it's a women's lib 2.0 movement, right? Like women are starting to say, wait up, I can be a sexual person. I can talk about my body. I can make decisions about my body. I can have sex if when I want it. I can marry or not marry or have kids or not have kids. And I think that there's a real shift happening if there's enough courageous people, right? Um, I think it's very interesting. And I see it happening in a lot of the young people I talk to. I see it happening in my own family, my nieces, my daughters. Um, and I think it's going to be interesting. Like women, I'm going to say women's lib 2.0. But it's going to take not just the women, it's also going to take the men. Like a lot of these men who are kind of stepping up to say, whoa, don't talk about a woman that way, or you don't have a right to tell her what she should wear, or any of those, you know, gender typical kind of scenarios. I think it's going to take a lot. And I say 45 and younger, it might even be 40 and younger, 35 and younger, because there's still a shit ton of people on this planet that are locked into traditional gender spaces and mentally and emotionally. And when I say that, I don't mean gender identity, but the responsibilities of gender. And you know, that's fascinating to me. I seem to be on that side of TikTok for some reason. There's that gal, I don't know what her name is, but she's an appliance repair tech, and she's beautiful. And she has this long, brilliant red hair, and she just has all this knowledge about fixing washing machines and dryers and dishwashers. And she had a video recently about somebody who made a judgment about her because she is a woman. And I thought, the more people that do that, right? The more people that say, wait a minute, I can be beautiful and I can be a repair technician. Um, and I haven't seen that movie yet. Jayla said that, why should the guy take control? It's time to ask a woman. This is the love you, and it's always the guy's lead in time. Yeah, I mean, I totally think that we have to start erasing that. I think men would be happier too. my God, the number of men I see that are so stressed and in their own way stereotypically driven to be providers, for example, or to be know how to fix something. Um, Studying engineering, yeah, lots and lots of women are going into engineering these days. It's not just that, you guys. It's really about women holding their voice, right? So many women feel that they can't make it without a man. And that's the attitude that I think really has to go away. Why would a man want to be with somebody who's with him because she's afraid of not having a man? I don't understand that mentality. I think it would be, I mean, I can only imagine it would be so much nicer to be with somebody who doesn't need you but wants you in their life. I don't, I mean, I guess I'm coming at it from, I certainly didn't always feel this way, as you know, but I've certainly grown to the space where I don't want somebody in my life because I feel like I need them there. I want people in my life because I want them there. Needing somebody in your life really sets the stage for dysfunction to bloom and incorporate. And, you know, we can all say that it's nice to be needed, but not in the way that you'll sacrifice your voice or the way that you'll compromise your values. That's not good needing. It's not healthy needing. What to do when you feel like a client isn't hearing you but somehow still benefits from this session. And Nikki, I will answer your question in a second. So Muser, I think this is what I do. So I don't know what literature says, but this is what I do. I always sit back and say, I think I'd like to get a better understanding of how our sessions are helping. Would you mind spending a couple of minutes talking about that? And then figure out what they're, try to hear what they're getting from it and just follow up and maybe even ask, maybe review kind of the goals. Like, I know when we first started, I understood your goals to be blank, blank, blank. Have they changed since you started coming? And if they say, why do you ask? Say, well, I've noticed that there hasn't been a lot of movement around the suggestions that I've offered. And I'm just curious about that. Does it not make sense to you, or do they feel too disingenuous to you? Are you having a hard time with some of the suggestions? Or are you just okay in the space that you're in right now? Maybe something along those lines. That's off the top of my head. Your son, my marriage has been roommates for 3 years. My son shared with me that he feels his dad and I aren't trying and we just gave up. So the first thing I'm going to say is, what feeling does that actually mean to you? Because like you guys aren't trying isn't a feeling. So are you disappointed in us? Are you afraid? Can we maybe identify the feeling a little bit more closely? We don't do that very good in our vernacular, right? We say, I feel like blank, and we give this scenario instead of a feeling words, which sometimes makes it really hard to understand what somebody is feeling. So if he's 18, I also think this is probably a good time for him to have a better understanding that marriage is very much like the iceberg that took down the Titanic. The part that everybody sees is the same part that the ship's captain saw. But what's really happening is all of that part below the water, below the surface. And, it's like that because many of the things that couples go through under the surface can be resolved. And nobody needs to know how, I'm sure I've said something like how dark the skid marks were before they went through the laundry. But that's a little bit like what it is, right? It's that sometimes things are really awful and then they're resolvable and they get fixed. And then there are other things, and certainly in marriage, that we struggle with, that we put, you can use the skid marks example. Somehow dudes get this. I mean, when I use this, it's because that sounds terrible, but somehow men get this. Sometimes, or pit stains, right? It's like no matter how many times you wash the shirt, the pit stains just don't come out. Eventually, that t-shirt is ruined because there's just been too many uses of it without it getting super clean. So I'm a big metaphor person, and I think people can understand things like that when we create a visual for them. Often it's easier for them to kind of relate. So the other thing that's important to know that I would probably, and I say this to a lot of teenagers, everything seems simple until it's happening to you. And that's true. I mean, I can remember, my parents, and I have told my children, when my parents broke up, I was 12, 13, and I remember having lots of attitude about that. And then I got married, and all of a sudden, a lot of the things I saw, I had relatable context for. And I was able to put my parents' relationship into perspective as a result of being in my own. And I think that that's easy to say, but I honestly think the iceberg piece is probably the best analogy that you can give him, and say, as your mom and dad, your relationship with us is parent to son. You don't need to be in a triangle of our marriage, so we're not going to share the stuff that goes on under the water, because it's our marriage, not our parenting piece. And I think a lot of parents forget that. I can't tell you how many parents forget that. Good. I hope that helps. And I would really try to identify the feeling, though, because it may be that he's scared, he's confused, and honor that. Like, whatever he tells you, of course he is all those things, because he doesn't know. And all he really wants to think about is what's a healthy relationship. Like, what does this mean for me growing up? And you might even offer that once he is in a long-term relationship and he's considering a lifetime, to come back and ask some more relevant questions that might help guide him in that relationship. I think that that can be helpful too. In terms of Trebor, in terms of absorbing everybody's trauma, I think it's something that as a new therapist, most of us do a little bit of. And then you learn how to create a crevice between you and the client. And you can pass, it's a little bit, I imagine it like empathy and compassion are clouds that move across the crevice, but the trauma and the pain are the rivers flowing into the crevice. So we can get all this warmth and comfort and compassion out there, but all of their pain falls off before it gets to me. At least that's the metaphor I use. Do you think anyone can learn how not to absorb other people's trauma? Yes. So I've talked about this before, but there's a researcher mapping out compassion and empathy in the brain and the neural networks that both of those emotions kind of operate within. And what she's discovering is that they're two very separate spaces. And the way that I understand compassion is when we feel like we can understand just from a kind of a humanitarian perspective, and we can connect and relate to you like from a in humanity. Empathy is when we're drawing on some personal aspect that allows us to connect to a similar pain and bond in that experience. So I think everybody has the potential to have compassion, maybe not necessarily the empathy, right? So in terms of not absorbing other people's trauma, it's mostly about hearing and not putting yourself in their shoes, right? It's becoming the observer versus a play act, an actor in that experience, an audience member versus being on stage with them. Maybe think of it like that. So anybody can be observant. Not everybody can necessarily be on stage. Does that make sense? Hello, Latavia. I think, hopefully that makes sense. I think anybody can go and observe. And you can train yourself to be an observer. I only say that because I do that a lot just with the things that I'm emotionally connected to, like when my kids do something that I think is dangerous, or if I start to feel anxious, I have trained myself to kind of sit back and become an observer instead of imagining myself with them, trying to get them to stop or to back up or whatever. I'm a little claustrophobic. So I need to be able to, and I don't know why, by the way, I don't know where that stems from, but I need to be able to get out and have some like immediate control. And so a friend of mine is learning how to scuba dive, and I'm like, No, I don't want to think about you scuba diving because I won't be able to breathe. That's empathy, right? That's that I'm going to take the way I would experience that. That's being the actor on the stage. And if I'm observing, then it's me like watching a movie, and I can watch a movie all day long about scuba divers. I can watch people in an aquarium, the divers that go in, and I'm observing them, but I can't think about getting in the tank and blowing bubbles. And so, yes, I think that we can become observers. Thank you for that. Um, and that is a great way, by the way, to manage your adult children who are experiencing life in ways that you wish they wouldn't. Can I fly? Yes, but only because I am desperate to get to where I'm going, and B, once I realized that the pilot wanted to get home safely, I was fine for some reason. It was like letting somebody else drive the car. All I really want to know is that we all have the same motivation. Like when I'm on the highway sometimes and people are crazy, I just look around and I'm like, okay, we all are just trying to get to where we want to go. I'm just gonna take a deep breath and just remember that we're all trying to get to where we're trying to get. And we all want to get there safely. And when I remember that, I tend to calm down. Need to be able to get out. That's why you need an end spot at the table. Okay, yeah, there's no escape. You're right, and I think I've made peace with flying. Like I've made peace with it because I have to fly to see my family, and there's just no other way around it. And I'm not so claustrophobic that I have to have an end seat at a table. It's more about it's probably more about not getting air. My brother and I are convinced that we were together in a past life and went off a bridge and drowned in a car. Now, I don't have a memory of that or anything except I can't stand bridges, and I have this claustrophobia around not being trapped and not being able to breathe. So, hello, Mama Shellish. You can't sleep with the bedroom door closed. That's interesting. I can't sleep with it open. How about that? Aren't we all just amazingly interesting creatures? Quick escape, introvert. Oh, that's probably true. Yeah, not probably true, but I think introvert's a good point. Adding to that, like this quick escape. Yeah. Your sister's been acting a lot of hurtful ways lately and gaslighting when we tried to bring it up. My mom is especially affected, but having a hard time with boundaries. Ugh, I'm sorry, Lauren. It's so hard to it's so hard when families get divided like that, and moms are screwed, right? And I say that because especially when kids start fighting with each other in their adulthood and insulting out of nowhere, picking fights, etc. Well, obviously something's going on because only hurt people act like that. So something hurts. Try to think about this, you guys. If there was no language, we would all walk around behaving in a way that was consistent with how we're feeling. And a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people don't use their words, especially with negative feelings. And so when you see somebody engaged in really ugly behavior, try to see them as somebody who hurts. Yeah, Lauren, boundaries, 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 right? And you don't have to tolerate somebody's bad behavior. I think that you should have chosen violence, Latavia. And what I said was, if I remember it correctly, is that we don't get to choose what life throws at us. We only get to choose how we react to it. And maybe, just maybe, the whole point is to be here and learn how to live in love. And that when I said that, something in me like clicked into place a little bit. And I kind of have a renewed vigor for that, I guess. I really appreciate all of your support and love and kindness and sweet words and all of that. So have a great week.